Good day, everyone. Welcome to Blacklogic. U.S. tech giants are building government supercomputers. Terrorist labels dropped on foreign regimes. A sitting U.S. senator under defense investigation. Ukraine edging toward a U.S. brokered peace. And Russia missiles shredding civilian centers as they are still trying to pass this 28-point peace plan between Ukraine and Russia. And President Trump, he really wants this peace deal to go through because he's not giving President Zelensky any other options. Now, Amazon has announced up to $50 billion in investments to build AI and supercomputing infrastructure for U.S. government customers. And this is not just a tech spending story. It's about who builds the digital backbone of our federal agency and who controls the models and data, and how private tech firms become partners in national security. And now the scale alone signals that the U.S. is treating AI infrastructure like an arms race. It's kind of similar to like the Cold War, where we are trying to either create nuclear bombs or reach Mars. It's all of these competitions that really coincides and alludes to battles, wars, and skirmishes, because that is the way that America is treating this whole AI battle, where we're creating and making these billion-dollar deals with, the likes of Amazon, OpenAI, Claude, all these different large language model AIs, even Perplexity to a certain degree. But this is a $50 billion AI infrastructure that Amazon is going to build for the U.S. government. And it states here that Amazon said it will invest as much as $50 billion in AI infrastructure. The project will add 1.3 gigawatts of capacity across new data centers, with Amazon expected to break ground in 2026. As part of the investment, agencies will have access to Amazon Web Services, AI tools, Anthropic Claude family of models, and NVIDIA chips, as well as Amazon custom titanium AI chips. So again, President Trump has gotten really in bed, in cahoots with a lot of the tech giants. And I think what they're going to do now, this is me pontificating on this for a moment, because as I'm looking at the investments of NVIDIA, Japan, Amazon, we're talking about $100 billion here, $200 billion there, of the investment that people are going to really be investing in America. I think that the American government is going to build a predictive AI model. If not, they already done, to predict what countries like China and Russia is going to do in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And we're going to start to strategically alter the way we go about running our country, especially on the military defense level. Because again, AI has basically all the information in the world. So it takes all these data points in, and they have built, in my opinion, they have built a predictive model to see the outcome. It's kind of like when people say that Nostradamus, he predicted a lot of things that are going on today, just as well as the book 1984 by George Orwell predicted a lot of things that's going on today. We had some really intelligent people with a lot of foresight and futuristic knowledge, but AI now can take literally all the knowledge that are in books, online, on journals, whatever it may be, and can draw those in and can predict possible outcomes of a lot of these other countries. So again, I think that's going to be very telling, because they're not going to let us know the intricate parts of a predictive analysis machine. Don't forget, they're going to probably mix autonomous AI, robotics, and quantum computing all in together to create some supercomputer, like a really supercomputer, not just something that you put in some prompts and it spit out a bunch of things. Because you have these talking AI models, right? Open AI with ChatGPT has a talking portion where you can literally have a conversation. Gemini, you can go back and forth and talk in Gemini. You can have a full out conversation. So just imagine what they're building with all these billions of dollars and building these infrastructures around AI. We can only imagine. And if anything else that sparks my interest, I think you guys would be interested in, I'll definitely keep you guys abreast of the situation, okay? Now, the U.S. formally designated Venezuela cartel. Give me 1 second. I had these out of order, but I wanted to point this story out because the U.S. has pointed Venezuela's Cartel de las Solas a terrorist group, as well as the president. They have accounted them to be a foreign terrorist organization that is trying, that they're basically tying it to high-ranking officials in President Maduro's regime and major drug trafficking to the U.S. They're stating that this is a government-led terrorist group that is basically flooding America with drugs. Now, because it's coming from Venezuela, I'm probably thinking it's cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, and some other drugs. And this is why this is kind of dangerous. Maybe not for the president or the presidency itself, but it's dangerous for Americans because we're labeling a foreign network as terrorist that opens the door to more aggressive U.S. actions and sanctions that Americans in the region, not just in Venezuela, but around the region, could be harmed by this because you think you may be attacking the government and one of their organizations or a potential cartel that is a terrorist group. But do not forget that America, for quite some time, we've never been a friend of a lot of the other countries, but we still visit. People have businesses, import and export of these businesses because, again, they may have resources that other countries may not have at a given price point. This is really going to hurt a lot of international relations. And this may have some implications for military involvement because for Latin America, for U.S. drug and immigration policy, and basically for global norms, this move could shift the tectonic plates when it comes to international relations with a lot of these Central American Latin countries. So again, I hope we can dial back the rhetoric and actually produce proof and evidence. Because here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, whether you like President Trump or not, whether you like Joe Biden or not, I still would like to have a country, a republic, with some hallmarks of a democracy where the government provides information to the American people so the American people can actually back some of the political and military defense moves that our government makes. Because again, if you voted for Donald Trump, I believe that you would like to like proof. You're not taking anybody's word for face value. You don't do that to your kids. You don't do that to people who owe you money. You're like, no, I need evidence. I need proof. I need collateral. I need something else than just your word. Because believe me, if you're just believing anything that any of these presidents say, any of these administrations say, then believe me, you're lost already and you're just a fool. Because when you go to a court of law, before they can convict you guilty, they have to have some sort of evidence, not just claims. So the American government say this is a terrorist group and they're flooding America with drugs. Okay, nice claims. Where's your evidence and proof so the American people could be behind? Because here's what people fail to understand. America is just not native red Americans, not just foundational Black Americans, not just white Americans, but we have people from all around the world. We have Venezuelans living here. We have people from Central and Latin America living here. We have people from South America, Africa, the Caribbean, Australia, Asia, Europe, all over the place. We have people living here. So again, when I think about this, and we look at a lot of these, political turmoil that the Trump administration is getting involved with, it doesn't matter what administration that we are referring to, we still need evidence so that people can be behind some of these strategic political moves that's basically causing, the national debt crisis to increase, very, very exponentially. Because right now we're on the precipice of $38 trillion and still counting. But again, I used to give these videos where I inform people that America is a monetary sovereign. So it really doesn't matter how much money that we are in debt. As you notice, the dollar is still the world currency that people trade on the Forex trading blocks day in and day out, 24/7, 365. So when it comes to international relations, I just will want the administration, just like any other administration, to provide proof and evidence so the American people can back some of the actions. Because if we're just going in here willy-nilly and blind to some of the things that are occurring, just like I just found out just the other day, there was a U.S. Congresswoman of Haitian descent who allegedly funneled $5 million from FEMA. So if you guys want to catch that, man, there's just so much going on right now, and it's coming both from the Republicans and Democrats. And because of the transparency of the Republicans, no less, is the reason why the American people in general are now asking for more transparency and for things to be revealed, for things to be offered and or displayed so we can back our government tenfold. But it seems as though that some things are transparent and other things are not transparent. Now, are you guys familiar with this? Because the judge dismissed DOJ's criminal case against Comey. Don't forget, this was the FBI director that Trump was basically stating that some of the claims that he was making was fraudulent and that he should be locked up, he should be in jail. Okay, that's what President Trump essentially alluded to, that because he didn't agree with Comey's finding that Comey indeed basically trumped up charges against Trump that were fraudulent, but the DOJ looked at the case like they threw it out. There's no case against Comey, guys. There's no case against Comey. I'm not going to even bore you with that because this next one, the U.S. Department of Defense announced that it's opening an investigation into Mark Kelly, who is a U.S. senator, no less, for alleged behavior that's tied to Pentagon activities. When lawmakers are under scrutiny, I want to point this thing out to you guys. When lawmakers are under scrutiny for how they handle defense ties, transparency, national security, and yes, conflict of interest, it becomes front and center for the American people to watch. Because if this investigation finds wrongdoing, trust in the military, industrial, congressional complex, it's really going to take another hit when we look at this, because he called these guys traitors and that they should be locked up and put to death because they came out and told U.S. military personnel not to comply with illegal orders. That is what he told them. And some of the senators are backing their stance. Now, this particular Democrat here, she says, they asked her a question, do you believe that President Trump has issued any illegal orders? And her response was, to my knowledge, I'm not aware of things that are illegal. I'm not aware of things that are illegal. Okay, that's maybe an improper sentence structure in reference to the question. It goes on to state, but certainly there are some legal gymnastics that are going on with these Caribbean strikes and everything related to Venezuela, which we just kind of covered. That, again, there's no proof that this Democrat is stating. And I looked at her name, by the way. I like to research people. Now, her name is Elisa Slotkin. Now, I know that to be of an Eastern European name. And by the way, she's Jewish. Why does all that matter? What I just information I just devolved? Because she's a Democrat and she's speaking out against the strikes that are occurring in the Caribbean, like countries like Venezuela. A lot of times I wonder if there's any special interest that certain lawmakers, businessmen have in Central America and why they kind of shoot down some of the things that the president is doing. Not that I agree, but see, here's the thing with a lot of Americans. We become emotionally charged depending on what side of the political spectrum that we deem ourselves on. Like some people would definitely say, oh, I'm a Democrat, or they would say that I'm a Republican or I'm an independent or something. And I'm just like, hey, whatever policies that are presented before me, whichever suits me, my family, and my community the best, that's with the policies or the political party that I vote with. But I will never deem or label myself as a Republican or Democrat, because I believe when you take sides like that, all the while you will have to defend yourself. And some people will say, when it comes to voting, if you don't vote, and I want you guys to really think about this. Maybe I'm wrong. I want your take on it. If you don't vote, you don't have a voice. I want you to really think about that, because Michelle Obama really pushed that. Kamala Harris really pushed that. If you don't vote, you don't have a voice. What happens when you vote, right? Your voice had been spoken. You made a point to vote for a particular political candidate, but now you have no more leverage. You see what I'm getting at? when I have all my chips, right, and I'm at a poker table and I can fold until the big blind and little blind come my way, then I have to play. But other than that, I can keep folding my hands. I don't have to play the game, but I still have all of my chips. I still have leverage. I still have skin in the game. So that whole term that if you don't vote, you don't have a voice is stupidity, in my opinion. Because if certain demographics and certain races of people just say, we're going to hold on to our vote until you put things on the docket, until you put things within your campaign slogans, until you make comprehensive lists in black and white and make promises, actual promises on black and white of what you're going to do for said demographic, then we'll vote for you. Because voting to a certain degree, now most people know when it comes to the national election, the changes that are made takes 4, 6, 10 years to trickle down to the American people. Except with this presidency, a lot of things have been happening a lot quicker than people really assumed that it would. Now, we all know that community voting, like for your city council and your state, those things affect you immediately. We're talking about days to months versus years when it comes to the federal government. But nonetheless, always look at your vote as a bargaining chip, as leverage. And if you can get a good group of people with you, I'm talking about 100 people, 1,000 people, that is when power from the people unites and you can start making things happen. But don't forget, once you cast your vote, you have no more power, you have no more leverage. The only leverage is kind of when a president is in his first term, or you have a senator or congressman who are trying to appease the people. But if a president is in second term, once you voted for him, President Trump not have to listen to no people. Why would he? He know he can't be president anymore. So why? Oh, well, this is more than just him being president. This is the likes of, the Republican Party. Well, there's always been a kind of a divide between so-called right-wing conservative and the MAGA cult that people are stating. I don't believe they're a cult. I think they just have different perspective and views. If anything, all of them are cult, both Democrats and Republicans, and we're going to label those things. Again, I digress, but I just had to point that thing out to a lot of people because there's more to a lot of these news stories than what we kind of read on the surface. And that's why things come out 2-3 years later and find out that all this was basically fraudulent. I just wonder how they can live with themselves to a certain degree. I really do question that a lot. Now, U.S. officials said that says that a Ukraine delegation has agreed with the U.S. on terms for a potential peace deal with Russia. This is a good thing to us. I mean, this is a good thing when it comes to saving lives, so to speak. But they're signaling a dramatic shift in the Russian-Ukrainian war. And if Ukraine accepts terms brokered by the U.S., it could reshape European security and the aligned obligations like NATO and how U.S. balances power against Russia. And the bigger question, at what cost will peace come? Because do not forget, I pointed out last week how Russia wants the eastern seaboard of all of Ukraine, not just Crimea. And if I could, I wish I had that graphic up for you guys, but they're taking over like 1/5 of Ukraine, okay? They're taking over 1/5 of Ukraine in this 28-point peace deal. Once the peace deal is signed, they have 100 days to hold an election and elect a new president, okay? And they have to reduce their army from 880,000 people to 600,000 people. So this whole peace deal that has been going back and forth between U.S. officials and Russian officials, you know, Ukraine is just watching the game. Ukraine is like a spectator in these negotiation deal, which is, in my personal opinion, is unfair. You're talking about the future of my country, and I don't even have a seat at the table. And by the way, President Trump stated that, hey, you're going to take this deal. If you don't take this deal, you're not getting any more U.S. support. Here's a part where I differ at. I'm glad that they're coming to a peace deal. I don't like the peace deal. I'm glad that President Trump is pressuring Ukraine to sign a peace deal, but not this peace deal. So one, the American inflation and the forking out a foreign budget of billions of dollars can be decreased and or stopped or slowed to a certain point. So I'm torn. If you guys can really, relish what I'm getting at. I'm torn because this peace deal needs to be revamped. It needs to be reconstructed. This is not even a peace deal. This is a deal to give Russia 1/5 of Ukraine and to make Ukraine even more defenseless against Russia if there's any other future attacks. Now, one part of the peace deal did state, in some regards, that if Russia attacks Ukraine again, that America will help, but not NATO. NATO can't help Ukraine in any other way. Here's my thing. If Russia violates the peace deal, shouldn't everyone else? It's like a contradicting conflict that if Russia attacks Ukraine again, NATO can't help. NATO hasn't been helping anyway. If anything, if NATO have done anything thus far since this war started back in 2022, they've given humanitarian aid, but they have given no troops on the ground that's actually supported Ukrainian troops day in and day out. And the importance to the American people is that our tax dollars don't go to a senseless war between people of the same origin. These are Slavic people of Eastern European descent, basically killing themselves just like they did hundreds of years ago. But America, which was founded by Europeans, founded, not discovered. It's a difference. You got to learn, etymology of words, ladies and gentlemen. So I want to make sure people don't get on my case about that. So I just hope that it can come to some deal. And if it's at the cost of Ukraine losing 1/5 of their country and they accept it, then that's on them. Okay, that's definitely on them, because in this next story, you see at least 6 people were killed as Russian missiles rained down on Kyiv and a lot of these new strikes. And the underlying war expansion and the growing civilian toll, war is hitting civilian senators and changing the very demographics of Ukraine altogether. It raises questions of escalation as humanitarian crisis, the global response, and whether peace remains distant or suddenly near but costlier. So as they're negotiating peace deal, and look at this story timeline. You see that this story came out November 5th, November 25th, this morning at 6:35 a.m. And then a couple of hours later, Russia, is raining down missiles on Kyiv. Also, it says here a barrage of at least 22 Russian missiles target Ukrainian overnight, with at least one striking the capital. And Kyiv, and what the Ukrainian Minister of Energy called a massive attack on energy infrastructure. It's like, before we sign this peace deal, we're going to destroy the energy infrastructure, the water infrastructure. We don't make you guys hurt if we're going to sign this deal, even though it favors Russia. Russia also fired, listen to this, overnight, at least 460 drones, several of which flew into either Moldova or Romania. And Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said early on Tuesday, "This is why all partners must not forget that everyday lives need to be saved," Zelensky said on social media. "Weapons and air defense are important, just as important as the sanction pressure on the aggressor." There's one thing that the Ukrainians know more than the Americans. It's one thing that Ukrainians know more than the Americans, and it's the foe that they're fighting. It's their enemy that they're fighting is Russia. I mean, we used to fight Russia back in the Cold War, but we've been a distant ally or neutral with Russia for a very long time. But Ukraine and Russia, ever since they disbanded the Soviet Union, they've always been kind of back and forth with these skirmishes and battles, and it's basically been over land. How Russia, first and foremost, Russia is the largest country by land mass today. If you ever look at how large the Russian Empire is, I mean, they are extremely large, and I think second is Canada. But no less, they're trying to gain more fertile and more vital land, which is Ukraine. So again, these are a lot of things that we need to understand when it comes to the global power plays that a lot of these countries are playing, and why they're at war, and why hundreds of thousands of people are dying behind it. Now, I know you guys have been familiar with this story that I reported on last week. that the United States Department of Education announced that nursing is no longer categorized as a professional degree. Now, and this is for certain, federal purposes why they kind of made this. This is a major signal. Uh-oh, 1 second. My apologies. I hit a button. As I was saying, this is a major signal to the healthcare sector because the recognition of roles, funding pathways, and career ladders are being redefined, whether it be your jobs and wages and the access to the training that you have, especially in people who may not normally have the funds to go to nursing school, but has aspirations to become a nurse, male or female. So I look at all of it because all of these different demographics and community of people all take a hit when definitions are changed. And this is a big one. They've decreased the amount of funding for nurses greatly, even though we have a nationwide shortage of healthcare professionals, especially nurses. So again, a lot of people who voted for Trump, I know you guys have been watching my Latinos for Trump, where are they now? I really want you guys to tune in tomorrow evening. I'm gonna release another video, Arabs for Trump, okay? Arabs for Trump, because we need to understand how all these different immigrant groups, whether they're naturalized or on visas, and some people who have become citizens, how they have banded together for one reason or another and voted for President Trump, and how that now is kicking them in the butt. I've been reading a lot of comments lately, ladies and gentlemen, on some of the videos I've been making. And people say, why are you not pointing out that some Black Americans voted for Trump? Yeah, they voted for Trump because of immigration. Majority of foundational Black Americans, majority of Black Americans voted for Trump, especially those in Chicago, no less. Especially those in Chicago, New York, certain parts of Ohio. It just depends on where their communities lie. They voted on Trump because of the massive amount of illegal immigration. We understand how illegal immigration really got into Chicago, where they was asking the Biden administration to secure the border. So the governor of Texas, Governor Greg Abbott, he put together some barbed wire and some flotation devices to deter illegal immigrants that was coming through the northern part of Mexico into America, so they can possibly go to another part, maybe through New Mexico or California, but basically deter them from coming through Texas, which is kind of the direct line where they can sneak under a fence and squeeze through a fence. And so they had federal troops to remove all these things. So Governor Greg Abbott, okay, I'm no friend. Again, I'm not part of that, political affiliation, but I understand some of, the tactics that he did. He started to bus and fly migrants to Democratic sanctuary cities. And again, this is twofold, because you have to understand, in this system that we call white supremacy, that they do things mostly twofold. And what I mean by that is, he not only bust them and flew them to sanctuary cities, he also bust them and flew them to sanctuary cities that were majority Black, like a Chicago. And when we look into the demographics, and I'm gonna point those things out on Friday, I'm gonna release another video on Friday, how Black immigrant groups' crime statistics get mixed in with foundational Black American crime statistics. And when we separate them, we really see what demographic, we really see what ethnic group is committing majority of the crime. And this is the one thing where they kind of group all Black people as one big Negro, and how our crime statistics get mixed in with the Black immigrant crime statistic. And they believe that all Black people, and they kind of just blame it on Black Americans to a certain degree, that we are the ones committing all the crime, and that's not true. Because when there's crimes in other community, they tell you that this is a European immigrant from France, or this is a Mexican immigrant from here. They don't just say, oh, the Hispanic community has a high crime problem. No, they make sure you know the ethnic and or race of that person or where they derive from. But when it's Black crime, oh, it don't matter if they're from Jamaica. It don't matter if they're from Trinidad. It don't matter if they're from Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa. It doesn't matter. They just say Black on Black crime. They're committing crime. They're killing one another. They're frauding. They're scamming. And that's just not the truth. So Arabs for Trump, that one is airing Wednesday night at 6:45 p.m. Central Standard Time. And the delineation of the Black crime statistics is going to air 6:45 p.m. Central Standard Time on Friday. I thank you all for joining me here this morning. I see Prissy P. Volvo as the bull run. Prissy P says, have a good day, everyone. I'm going back to work now. See you next time, handsome. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. What else she says? Okay. And what else? What else? Good morning, Prissy says live. Okay. But anyway, I thank you guys for joining me here this morning. You guys have a great and wonderful day.